Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory is due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Akakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from and who do well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another Let's Do the Spirit. Now I'm entitled this one, The Vintage is Failing for Eve. And the vintage ultimately going into all the benefits that these modern day women, mainly the so-called black women, the Judite women, but also, the other tribes of the nation of Israel that comprise of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, the so-called black women, the Latina women, the Native American women, mainly the so-called black women, but really all these women that have been benefiting off this system, this beast system, Esau, Edom, behind it, the so-called white man that has given these women benefits for leaving their men, for going their own way, following after the serpent, because ultimately when Esau, Edom, came to Eve in the garden, he offered, to eat of the fruit that was forbidden to eat. And it's the same thing today. Ultimately going into that philosophies, that ideas, you don't need a man. You could be strong and independent. But ultimately, how can you be strong and independent if you're relying on the system to provide? And now that Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, is done using the women to war against the Israelite man mainly, because now you got these other nations, you got the Edomites, the Edomite women coming against his men, because this mindset of feminism has polluted the really damn near the all the women up on the planet Earth, but mainly here in America, because here you got child support, you got food stamps, you got Section 8, you got Esau, Edom providing incentives and scholarships for Eve to go to school, but yet all that didn't benefit the modern day women, especially the Israelite women, because now you got Eve getting fired from these jobs. Donald Trump came in, he ended the DEI, and all these jobs laying off Eve, because you got majority of Eve in these jobs that were created for them to just do nothing so they could be set over the Israelite men. And now that it's worked, and now that the families have been broken apart, you got Eve taking custody of their, the children. The serpent, which is ultimately going back into a man, which is really today would be Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man. He's achieved his goal. So now he's treating Eve like a throwaway gun, like a throwaway pistol. He's done using it. He's just going to throw it away. And that's what he's doing now. He's discarding of Eve now that he's used the women as a weapon, especially towards the Israelite men. Because you got a lot of Jake in jail over false witness, false accusations made off of Eve. You got a lot of Jake in the grave because of Eve. And now it's to the point where Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is tired of this modern day woman. And now he's putting it upon the spirit of Esau, Edom, to take all these benefits, all these dainties that he's offered throughout the decades, Section 8, food stamps, child support, that's all being taken away. But ultimately, it's Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai letting these women know that it's over, that this system that they've been benefiting off so long is over. This is Isaiah 32 and verse 9. Rise up, ye women that are at ease, hear my voice, ye careless daughters, give ear unto my speech. Verse 10, many days and years shall ye be troubled, ye careless women, for the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. And we get that word vintage, see what it says. And that word vintage, it says basar. It says the grape crop. Which ultimately the crops that Esau Edom has been providing for these women through food stamps, BET, $200 rent, that's being taken away. All these jobs that have been working at, these government jobs, completely doing nothing, just sitting on their ass and getting paid. Esau Edom's done with that. So now all these different benefits that the serpent has given to Eve, especially here in America, they're being taken away. Because ultimately it's Yahweh Bashmiel Shai putting it upon the spirit of these devils to take all these benefits off these women. Because these women have gotten comfortable. They've gotten proud and arrogant, thinking that their shit don't stink. You can't tell them nothing. I don't need no man. I'm strong, independent. But now that Esau Edom has crashed this system, these women are starting to feel it. That's why they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, on Facebook, crying and sighing and shedding all these tears, these crocodile tears, crying about why no man is approaching women nowadays. All these men are rejecting me. Women in their 30s and 40s talking about, I'm ready to settle down now that I've had all my fun and I wasted all my youth. That's letting you know how bugged out these women are. And very soon, they're going to really have a rude awakening. Right now, they're having an awakening. But when this devil collapses this system, he do away with the dollar. He gets rid of all these jobs and replaces them with AI. These women are really going to be crying out. They're going to be crying for a man. They're going to be crying out for really the men of the Lord. But, the men of the Lord aren't going to be checking for these modern day women that have used themselves up in their youth, used box. Now they're 60 years old, trying to settle down, talking about why nobody wants to marry me. That's letting you know how bugged out these women are. That's why majority of women here in America, the 2/3 of the nation of Israel that are destined to be destroyed, is really consisting mainly of women, because you have 10 women to every man, but yet here you got women telling you that they're the prize. It says Mark chapter 3 and verse 27, and it reads, no man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. And that's what happened. Ultimately, when back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, shit, even the 70s, the Israelite families, they were together, especially the southern kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the so-called black, black people, black tribes, they were together. But then when Esau Edom started offering that, that child support, Section 8, food stamps, you leave your man, it benefits you more to take the kids, leave the man. Then you got the propaganda through all these different movies and TV shows showing strong, independent black women. And then you got all these Cardi B's, Megan Thee Stallion, Nicki Minaj that only made it worse. That's why you see Eve now completely bugged out. Sexy Reds, Ice Spice, letting you know how far our nation has fell, because the pride of a nation is the woman, and whose woman is at the lowest of the lowest is the nation of Israel, They're comprised of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And the way that they gotten so low is by trusting in the serpent, trusting in the white man, the so-called white man, which is really Esau Edom. And that's what he did. He whispered into the ear of Eve, telling, hey, if you leave your man, you can have all these food stamps. You can have this Section 8. You can have a job. You could, participate in society. You don't have to just sit at home and take care of the children and cook. No, you could be just like a man. Shit, you could be better than a man. And that's what happened. Now you got a lot of Eve making more money than Jake. You got Eve thinking that she's the shit because she has all these degrees. She has a PhD. And ultimately, that was all the plan of Esau Edom, and it worked. But now it's failing because now these women are crying out for men. They're, why doesn't nobody want me? Why doesn't nobody want me? I have 4 degrees. I have 3 houses and 4 cars. I have all this material wealth. But men aren't looking for that. Men are looking for a submissive woman that's willing to bow down to the men and be willing to help. Not be a leech and a parasite like all these women talking about what can you do for me. I am the table, completely bugged out. But very soon they're going to have a rude awakening because majority of these women now, especially here in Babylon, they're wicked as all hell. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 28. Which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found. So here, King Solomon is looking for a righteous man among 1,000, and he found just one. But among 1,000 women, he found not one. So that's letting you know how wicked these women out here are in this modern day age. Majority of them are not in their right mind. That's why ultimately Yahweh Shemiel Shai is already reserved women for the men of the Lord, during the time of Isaiah 4:1. That's why you see majority of these women out here showing their ass on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, OnlyFans, because they're advertising themselves. So when all hell breaks loose, all these incels that have been watching, social media, they know where you work at, they know where you live at. They're keeping a close eye out on these women that love to show themselves. So when all hell breaks loose, they're gonna know where to find them, and ultimately they're gonna lack that protection. They're gonna lack that protection from a man because they ain't need no man. They were strong and independent. So when the cock carousel rides them, then they're gonna want a man. They're gonna be crying out. They're gonna be crying out to God. They're gonna be crying out to Jesus Christ. But they're not gonna get no answer because when it was the time to fall under a man of the Lord, they were out here being thought to being hoes, being whores, being sexy reds. This is Micah chapter 7 and verse 10. And it reads, Then she that is my enemy shall see it, and shame shall cover her which said unto me, Where is the Lord, Yahweh Shemiel Shai, thy power? Mine eyes shall behold her. Now she shall be trodden down as the mire of the streets. And very soon, all these women that claim that, God is my husband, Jesus Christ is my husband. No, ultimately, man is supposed to be your husband. There's an order to things, which the Most High is first, Yahweh. Then his only begotten Son, which is Yahweh Shai, and then the men, and then the women. But yet, you got these women out here completely out of order, thinking that they could go straight to the Most High, thinking that they could go straight to Yahweh Shai. And they love to say, why aren't these prophecies that you say been saying that they're gonna come to pass not happening? You got a lot of brothers, their wives left them because they didn't want to get with the program. They didn't like the idea of Isaiah 4:1, so they left the man of the Lord. But very soon they're gonna come to find out that was the worst thing they could have done. That they should have thugged it out. They should have held strong. But when all hell breaks loose, they're gonna want to come back to some of the men of the Lord, but the men of the Lord, they're not gonna answer that door. They're gonna keep that door shut. Or shit, if they try to barge in the door, they're gonna shut it in their face. Because when they had the time to get right, under the man of the Lord, and be submissive, they chose to follow after the serpent, to follow after the ways of Babylon, feminism, so they could get that Section 8, that food stamps, those benefits, those dainties off of Esau, Edom, for choosing to trust in the system. But that's going to lead to their destruction. This is Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 1. Woe to the rebellious children, said the Lord, Yahweh Bashmiel Shai, to take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. And ultimately, majority, the whole nation of Israel sin. But look at the women nowadays. Women are completely out of order, bugging the hell out, trusting in this system, the beast system. That's why majority of them, when all hell breaks loose, they're going to take that MOTB. They're going to bow down to this system, so they can keep going out there and being thoughts all weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, so they can go on brunch with the girls. That's ultimately why a majority of Eve is going to take that MOTB, so they could get some of those benefits, some of those dainties back when they had it, when everything was in so-called normal. They're going to be willing to bow down to the image of the beast so they could go back and be thoughts like they're so used to being. Verse 2, that go down into Egypt and have not asked to my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. And that's what majority of these modern day women, especially Eve, have done. Keisha, going down to the serpent, the Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man for help, going down to these Planned Parenthoods and aborting, their or baby deletion, and ultimately that has gotten the mark with Yahweh Bashmiel Shai. Verse 3, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. So all these modern day women, Eve, the Israelite women that have trusted in this system and in this wicked ass system in America and Babylon the Great, drunken off of the Babylonian wine, they're going to have a rude awakening very soon. And they're having that awakening now, because now that all these dainties, the vintage is failing, Section 8 is being taken away, nobody's hiring them. Eve is getting fired at a record number. You had 300,000 black women getting laid off. These are all signs that the system is collapsing and that Esau, Edom is done using Eve to destroy the Israelite man. And very soon, they're going to be asked out. They're going to have no covering, because when it was time to get a man of the Lord and fall under them, they chose to be thoughts. They chose to trust in Esau, Edom. They chose to trust in his wicked ass system instead of trusting in Yahweh Bashmiel Shai and bow down under the man of the Lord. But that's pretty much the point. Pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who are learning this truth from and who do well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom.